The air in the grand rotunda of the galactic synarchy tasted of ozone and ancient, recycled fear. It was a cavernous space, vast enough to manipulate its own microclimate, where clouds of incense and condensation clung to the vaulted ceiling like ghosts of dead empires. The rotunda was built from the hollowed-out core of a dead moon, a testament to the engineering prowess of the elder races. Yet now, beneath the crushing weight of the present crisis, it felt less like a monument to governance and more like a tomb. In the center of the chamber, suspended within a chaotic field of anti-gravitic emitters, floated the Omnimap, a holographic representation of the galaxy that was currently bleeding a violent, pulsating crimson. Every red sector represented silence, total, absolute, and terrified silence. The Caraxes horde did not take prisoners, nor did they occupy territory in the traditional sense. They consumed, stripped, and converted, leaving behind only dust and the echoing screams of subspace transmissions cut short. High Counselor Thulvada, a creature of slender, aquatic grace encased in a hydration suit of shimmering plasteel, watched the red tide advance with eyes that had seen 3 centuries of peace and 3 months of hell. He felt the vibrations of the arguing counselors through the floor plates, a cacophony of panicked clicks, guttural roars, and synthesized speech that merged into a singular drone of despair. The Synarchy, a coalition of thousands of systems and hundreds of sentient species, was dissolving. It was not breaking apart due to internal strife or economic collapse, but simply evaporating under the heat of a predator that defied all known logic of warfare. The Caraxes were not merely conquerors. They were a biological imperative, a swarming mass of chitin and starship alloy that moved with the synchronization of a single, malevolent mind. "We must retreat to the inner rim," bellowed General Kruk, his voice booming like grinding tectonic plates. Kruk was a Lithorian, a species of silicon-based giants whose skin was indistinguishable from granite. He slammed a fist onto his podium, cracking the obsidian surface. "The outer arms are lost. The blockade at the Antares Gate has fallen. To send more fleets is to feed meat to a thresher. We pull back, we fortify the core systems, and we pray that their hunger is sated before they reach the homeworlds." Sated, the word hissed through the mandibles of Scholar Vex, an insected representative from the hive worlds of CH Call. "You speak of them as if they are beasts, General. They are engineers of genocide. They do not eat, they repurpose. Every ship we lose becomes part of their armada. Every soldier who falls rises again as a cybernetic drone. Retreat. There is nowhere to retreat to. The mathematics are absolute. At their current rate of expansion, the Synarchy ceases to exist in less than a standard cycle." Thulvada closed his secondary eyelids, trying to filter out the visual noise of the map. He was the presider, the voice of reason, but he had no reason left to offer. The Synarchy had tried everything. They had deployed the ionic storm generators, banned weapons from the dark age of the galaxy. The Caraxes had adapted their shielding within hours. They had attempted to negotiate, sending diplomatic envoys broadcasting on every known frequency. The envoys were returned as frozen debris, arranged in geometric patterns that screamed of mockery. They had even tried to collapse the hyperlanes, severing whole sectors from the grid to create a firewall of empty space. But the Caraxes simply drifted through the void, slow and inevitable, powered by engines that ignored the laws of thermodynamics. "There is one other option," Thulvada said, his voice amplified by the chamber's acoustics, silencing the roar of the debate. It was a soft voice, wet and weary, but it carried the weight of a desperate soul. The chamber grew still. Thousands of eyes, compound, singular, cybernetic, and biological, turned toward him. "The signal," Thulvada whispered. A ripple of unease moved through the assembly. General Kruk snorted, a sound like a rock slide. "Myths, fairy tales for hatchlings. You speak of the Saltaran Concordat? They are ghosts, Counselor. A species that vanished into the void beyond the galactic rim millennia ago. If they ever existed, they are dead. Or worse, they have become something unrecognizable." "They existed," Vex corrected, his antennae twitching with nervous energy. "The archives are fragmented, yes, but the data is there. They were the ones who broke the Great Filter. They were the ones who walked into the abyss and did not look back. But to call them now, it is forbidden. The edicts of the Founders state clearly that the void beyond the rim is quarantined. We do not know what lives there. We do not know what the Terrans became. Better a demon we might bargain with than the devil that is currently eating our children," Thulvada countered, his voice gaining a sudden, sharp edge. "I authorized the transmission 3 days ago, a high-band, hyper-threaded distress call on the ancient frequencies. I gave them our coordinates. I gave them our tactical data. I told them we are dying. The chamber erupted. Outrage, terror, and disbelief clashed in a storm of noise. Accusations of treason flew toward the central podium. Luvada stood his ground, watching the crimson stains on the omnimap creep closer to the Synarchy's heart. He knew he had likely doomed them all, either by summoning a new predator or by wasting their final moments on a hope that would never come. The Kyraxis fleets were not distinct dots on the map anymore. They were a solid wall of red, converging on the Synarchy's capital system, Authis. The sensors were already picking up the gravitational distortions of their arrival. The sky above the rotunda, visible through the transparent dome, was beginning to darken as the enemy blocked out the stars. The debate was cut short not by a gavel, but by a siren. It was the planetary proximity alarm, a sound that had not been heard on Authis for 1,000 years. The holographic map shifted, zooming in on the local system. Real-time optical feeds appeared on the floating screens surrounding the counselors. "They are here," Crux said, his voice losing its bluster, replaced by the hollow realization of the end. The Kyraxis armada did not warp in with a flash of light. They tore their way into reality, bleeding out of subspace like oil surfacing in water. Their ships were monstrosities of black metal and pulsating purple veins, jagged and asymmetrical, resembling shattered bones welded together. There were no formations, only a swarming cloud that blotted out the local sun. The Synarchy's defense fleet, the pride of 100 worlds, rose to meet them. It was a magnificent display of golden hulls and blue ion trails, a last defiant gesture of civilization against entropy. It lasted minutes. The Council watched in horrified silence as the Synarchy fleet was dismantled. The Kyraxis weapons were not beams of energy, but cohesive streams of corrosive matter that ate through shields and hull plating alike. Ships dissolved. They simply fell apart, their crews sucked into the vacuum, their reactors going critical in silent blossoms of fire. The defense grid of Authis, a network of orbital platforms capable of cracking moons, fired volley after volley. The Kyraxis ships absorbed the energy, glowing brighter, feeding on the very weapons designed to destroy them. "This is the end of history," Vex whispered, his optical sensors trembling. "We are witnessing the extinction event." Luvada gripped the railing of his podium. He looked up through the dome. The sky was filled with the enemy. Despair, heavy and suffocating, settled over him. He had gambled on the myths of humanity, and the myths had remained silent. The universe was cold, indifferent, and cruel. There were no saviors in the void, only predators and prey. And then the universe shuddered. It was not a sound, for sound cannot travel in a vacuum, but the sensors registered it as a gravitational scream. Every alarm in the rotunda flatlined and then reset. The lights flickered and died, replaced by emergency crimson, before stabilizing into a stark, clinical white. On the omnimap, directly between the Kyraxis swarm and the defenseless planet of Authis, a new contact appeared. It did not register as a fleet. It did not register as a ship. It registered as a celestial body. "Sensor malfunction," a technician shouted from the pit below, his voice cracking. I'm reading a mass equivalent to a dwarf star, but it's artificial." The view on the main screen shifted. The counselors, moments ago resigned to death, now leaned forward in confusion. The Kyraxis swarm, which had been descending with mindless fury, halted. The biological imperative that drove them seemed to pause, confused by the anomaly. From the tier in space, a vessel emerged. But to call it a vessel was an insult to the scale of it. It was a monolith, a sleek, tapering spearhead of matte gray material that seemed to drink the light of the stars. It possessed no visible engines, no weapons ports, no bridge towers. It was a perfect, seamless geometric form, kilometers long, so long that its prow was visible to the naked eye from the planet's surface while its stern was still exiting the subspace rupture. It was majestic, terrifying, and utterly silent. "Identify," General Kruk barked, though his voice lacked its usual command. "Friend or foe?" "Unknown," the technician replied. "No transponder, no energy signature matching any known configuration. It's cold, it's running at near absolute zero. Wait, I'm detecting a transmission. Broad spectrum, audio only." "Put it through," Luvada ordered, his heart hammering against his ribs. The static cleared and a voice filled the grand rotunda. It was not the synthesize screech of the Kyraxis, nor the melodic tones of the Synarchy. It was deep, resonant, and disturbingly calm. It spoke the trade tongue, but with an accent so archaic it sounded like the grinding of glaciers. "This is the United Terran Systems vessel Ethelgard," the voice said. "We received a distress call. We apologize for the delay. Subspace turbulence is thicker than usual in this epoch." Thulvada felt his knees weaken. They were real. "I am High Counselor Thulvada of the Galactic Synarchy," he stammered, forgetting protocol. We are under attack, the entity known as the Kyraxis." "We see them," the voice interrupted, polite but firm. "Please instruct your remaining forces to stand down and clear the vector. We would not want to damage your vessels with the backwash." "Backwash?" Kruk muttered. "One ship against the Horde, are they mad? They need a fleet." "High Counselor," the human voice continued, ignoring the background noise. "We are detecting high concentrations of civilian life on the planet below. Is this accurate?" "Yes," Thulvada said. "Billions, please, if you can assist, we need evacuation protocols immediately. We cannot hold the line." "Evacuation will not be necessary," the human replied. "Please observe." On the screen, the Kyraxis swarm seemed to recover from its confusion. Thousands of jagged ships turned their attention toward the gray monolith. They swarmed like angry wasps, firing their corrosive streams, launching boarding pods, unleashing the full fury that had consumed 100 worlds. The Ethelgard did not fire back. It did not raise shields. It simply existed. The corrosive beams struck the gray hull and vanished, dissipated into harmless radiation. The boarding pods crumpled against the armor like paper balls thrown against a mountain. "They are analyzing the attack patterns," Vex noted, his voice awestruck. "Look at the energy readings. The ship isn't deflecting the damage, it's absorbing the kinetic and thermal energy. It's feeding." Inside the council chamber, the atmosphere shifted from terror to bewilderment. The humans were doing nothing. They were sitting there, taking the most punishing bombardment the galaxy had ever seen, and they were seemingly indifferent to it. Then the voice returned. "Analysis complete. Aggressor species identified, Kyraxis, hive mind structure, techno-organic composition, threat level moderate." "Moderate?" Kruk roared. "They have wiped out half the galaxy." "Moderate relative to standard capabilities," the human corrected gently. "Initiating pacification protocols. Please shield your optical sensors. This will be bright." The Ethelgard changed. It did not open fire in the traditional sense. Instead, the sleek gray hull began to shift. Panels slid open, revealing an inner light that was not fire but a pure, blinding white, the light of a contained star. The ship didn't shoot projectiles, it pulsed. A wave of energy, visible only as a distortion of the starlight, rippled out from the human ship. It was a perfectly spherical expansion. It passed through the Synarchy debris harmlessly. It passed through the orbital platforms without triggering an overload. But when it hit the Kyraxis swarm, the effect was instant and catastrophic. The Kyraxis ships didn't explode. They stopped instantly. All motion ceased. The pulsating purple veins on their hulls turned gray. The engines darkened. The swarm, which moments ago had been a living, writhing thing, was turned into a graveyard of statues. The wave continued outward, expanding beyond the system, pushing into the deep void where the Kyraxis reinforcements waited. "What did they do?" Thulvada whispered. "Did they kill them?" I am reading no biosigns," the technician reported, his hands shaking over the console. "But there is no damage, no hull breaches, no thermal spikes. It's as if they just turned them off." "Electronic warfare?" Vex asked. "Against a biological hive mind, that is impossible." The human voice returned. "Target neutralized, local space secured. We are deploying a delegation to your surface. We have matters of diplomacy to discuss, and we believe a face-to-face meeting is appropriate to establish the new parameters of our interaction." "New parameters?" Kruk narrowed his eyes. "What does that mean?" "It means," Thulvada said, a new kind of fear creeping into his hearts, the fear of the unknown giant that had just swatted the monster aside, "that the war is over, and now we must deal with the victors." The landing craft that descended from the Ethelgard was nothing like the warship. It was a simple, elegant shuttle, white and gold, unarmed and aerodynamic. It landed on the private docking spire of the Grand Rotunda, a platform reserved for emperors and gods. The Synarchy Council, flanked by their honor guards, waited in the biting wind. Thulvada stood at the front, flanked by Kruk and Vex. They expected giants. They expected cyborgs. They expected beings radiating the same cold power as their ship. The ramp lowered, and 3 figures walked out. They were small, shockingly small. They wore no armor, only simple, tailored uniforms of a dark blue fabric that seemed to absorb the light. They had 2 arms, 2 legs, and soft, fleshy faces that looked terrifyingly vulnerable. They breathed the air without helmets. They carried no weapons. The leader, a woman with silver hair tied back in a severe bun and eyes the color of steel, stepped forward. She looked at the towering figure of General Kruk, then at the chitinous Vex, and finally rested her gaze on Lolvada. "I am Admiral Alina Halloway," she said. Her voice was the same one they had heard over the comms, calm, precise. "This is Ambassador Chen and Science Officer Aris. We greet you in the name of the Solteran Concordat." Lolvada bowed, a gesture of deep submission. "I am High Counselor Lolvada. You saved us. We owe you our lives, our worlds. We are at your mercy." Admiral Halloway frowned slightly, a micro-expression that Lolvada found impossible to read. "Mercy implies we held a blade to your throat, Counselor. We did not came to conquer. We came to answer a call. The Caraxes were disrupting the equilibrium of this sector. Their noise was becoming problematic." "Problematic?" Kruk grunted, stepping forward. He towered over the human woman, a mountain of rock and anger. "They slaughtered billions. They are monsters, and you just switch them off. How? What weapon is that? I demand to know." The Admiral didn't flinch. She didn't even look up at the giant. She merely adjusted her cuffs. "It was not a weapon, General. It was a severance signal. We identified the quantum frequency of their hive mind control carrier and inverted it. We didn't kill the drones. We liberated them from the command signal. Without the driving will, they are comatose. We will need to discuss how to humanely euthanize or rehabilitate the biological components later." "Rehabilitate?" Vex clicked. "They are eating machines." "They are biological organisms engineered for a purpose they did not choose." Officer Aris, the younger human male, spoke up. His tone was soft, almost sympathetic. "They are victims as much as you. We have containment facilities for such cases." The counselors exchanged glances. The ethics of these humans were as alien as their technology. "Please," Lolvada said, gesturing toward the great doors. "Come inside. We have prepared the grand chamber. We must discuss everything. We have so many questions. Where have you been? Why did you leave? And why return now?" They walked into the rotunda. As the humans entered, the atmosphere changed. The panic that had permeated the room evaporated, replaced by a dense, heavy curiosity. The humans walked with a casual confidence that was more intimidating than any march. They sat at the central table, dwarfed by the alien architecture, yet dominating the room. "To answer your first question," Halloway began once the formalities were settled. "We did not leave. We merely stepped aside. The galaxy is a cradle, Counselor. We outgrew the cradle. We moved to the, let's call it the garden beyond the fence." "The void," Vex whispered. "You live in the dark space between galaxies." "Darkness is relative," Ambassador Chen said, smiling. "There is much energy there if you know how to harvest it. We have spent the last 10,000 years building, learning, and preparing." "Preparing for what?" Lolvada asked. The humans exchanged a look. It was a look of shared burden, of a secret too heavy for the uninitiated. "That is a discussion for a later time," Halloway said. "For now, let us focus on the Synarchy. You are broken. Your fleets are gone. Your economy is shattered. The Caraxes have left scars that will take centuries to heal." "We will rebuild," Kruk said defiantly. "We are strong." "You are resilient," Halloway corrected. "But you are not strong enough, not for what comes next. The Caraxes were escaping. That is why they were so desperate. They were not expanding, they were running." A chill went through the room. "Running from whom?" Lolvada asked. "You." "No," Halloway said. "Not us. We are the gardeners. We try to keep the weeds down, but there are storms that even we cannot control. The Caraxes encountered a periphery scout of we call it the entropy, a force from outside the local group." The humans projected a holographic image onto the table. It showed the galaxy, a spiral of light. Then it zoomed out, showing the local cluster. And then at the edge of the image, a shadow. It wasn't black space. It was an absence of space. A jagged tear in the fabric of the universe that was slowly eating the light. "It is coming," Halloway said. "Slowly. It may take another 10,000 years, maybe 20, but it is coming. The Caraxes sensed the tremors in the subspace bedrock and fled in a blind panic, trampling you. In the process." The silence in the room was absolute. The political squabbles of the Synarchy, the borders, the trade disputes, it all suddenly seemed infinitesimally small. "Why tell us this?" Lolvada asked. "If we are doomed, why save us? Why not let us die in ignorance? Because you are not doomed, Holloway said, leaning forward. Her eyes burned with a fierce intelligence. 10,000 years is a long time, time enough to grow, time enough to evolve. We intervened because we cannot fight the entropy alone. We need diversity. We need the resilience of the Lithorians, the computational adaptability of the CH call, the diplomatic fluidity of your people, Volvada. We have become powerful, yes, but we have also become stagnant. We are too logical, too efficient. We have lost the chaotic spark that drives innovation. We saved you because we need you to remind us how to struggle. You want an alliance? Kruk asked, skeptical. You, with your starships and god weapons, want an alliance with us. We are ants to you. Ants build colonies that survive storms that topple giants, Chen said. Do not underestimate your own value. We offer you protection. We offer you technology, stabilized, safe technology, not the wild tech that destroyed your ancestors. In exchange, we ask for cooperation. We ask for a unified front. And we ask that you stop fighting each other. The internal wars of this galaxy generate noise in the subspace bands. It blinds our long-range sensors. We need silence to hear the enemy approach, hence the pacification of the Caraxes. Volvada looked at the humans. They were terrifying. They spoke of galactic extinction as if it were a weather report. They treated the deadliest war in Synarchy history as a noise complaint. But in their eyes, he saw something else. He saw exhaustion. He saw the loneliness of a species that had walked too far ahead and turned around to find no one following. If we agree, Volvada said, what happens to the Ethelgard? Will you stay? The Ethelgard is a forward operating base, Holloway said. It will remain in orbit of Authis. It will serve as the anchor for the restoration efforts, but we will not rule you. We will not sit on your councils. We will be the shield, not the crown. You must govern yourselves. You must choose to be better. If you return to petty squabbles, we will leave. And next time we will not answer the phone. The threat was clear, though delivered softly. The humans demanded peace, or they would abandon the galaxy to the dark. General Kruk sat back, his stone shoulders slumping. Peace, he grumbled. I have fought for 300 years. I do not know how to do peace. Then you will learn, Holloway said. Or you will be obsolete. The universe does not tolerate useless things. The meeting dragged on for hours. They discussed logistics, supply chains, the dismantling of the Caraxes hulks. The humans had answers for everything. They had fabricators that could rebuild cities in days. They had medical technology that could regenerate lost limbs. It was a golden age handed down from on high, but it came with the heavy price of knowing that the universe was far more dangerous than they had ever imagined. As the meeting adjourned, Volvada walked with Admiral Holloway to the balcony overlooking the ruined city of Authis. Smoke still rose from the burning districts, but the sky was clear. The Caraxes ships hung motionless in orbit, dark monuments to the human power. Admiral, Volvada said, may I ask a personal question? You may, she replied, looking up at the strange stars. You speak of the entropy, you speak of the long war, but you look so young. How do you bear the weight of such time? Holloway smiled, and for the first time it looked genuine. We don't bear it alone, Counselor. That is the secret. We link the crew of the Ethelgard. We are not entirely individuals anymore. We share the burden. We share the memory. I remember the Earth as it was before we left. I remember the green hills and the blue oceans. I remember the fear when we first looked into the dark. That memory keeps us human. If we forget where we came from, we become the machine. She turned to him. That is why we need you. You are still fresh. You still feel things deeply. You panicked today. You felt terror. You felt despair. We have forgotten how to feel those things. We analyze them, but we don't feel them. And that is dangerous. A species that cannot feel fear cannot understand the value of life. Volvada looked at his webbed hands. I think I felt enough fear today to last a lifetime, Admiral. Good, she said. Hold on to it. Let it drive you. Build something worth saving. Because one day the Ethelgard will not be enough. One day you will have to stand on the wall beside us. We will be ready, Volvada promised, surprising himself with the conviction in his voice. I hope so, Holloway said. She tapped her comms device. Holloway to Ethelgard 1 to transport. Confirmed, the voice of the ship replied. One last thing, Counselor, she said as the air around her began to shimmer with teleportation energy. The Caraxes, the one who led them, the Hive King, we preserved him. He is in stasis. Why? Volvada asked, horrified. Because he saw the entropy, Holloway said, her figure fading. And he is the only one who knows what it looks like. She vanished, leaving Volvada alone on the balcony. He looked up at the gray monolith in the sky. It was no longer a symbol of salvation. It was a challenge. The humans had stopped the war, yes, but they had started something much larger. They had dragged the Synarchy out of the cradle and onto the battlefield of the gods. Thulvada took a deep breath of the smoky air. It tasted of ash, but also of rain. The storm had broken, but the winter was coming. He turned back to the chamber where the arguments were already starting again. Kruk was shouting about resource allocation. Vex was calculating the scrap value of the Caraxes fleet. They were bickering, loud and chaotic and alive. Thulvada smiled. The humans were right. They were messy. They were inefficient, but they were alive. And for the first time in a long time, the future was not a red tide of death. It was a blank page, terrifying and white, waiting to be written. He walked back into the room. "Order!" he shouted, his voice ringing with a newfound strength. "We have work to do." The galaxy spun on. The Ethelgard watched, a silent sentinel in the night. And far away in the deep dark, something hungry stirred, sensing that the noise had stopped and wondering why the prey had suddenly become so quiet. But that was a story for another millennium. Today, the war was over. Today, humanity had returned, and the galaxy would never be the same again. The weeks following the arrival of the Ethelgard were a blur of shock and reconstruction. The initial euphoria of survival quickly gave way to the staggering reality of the situation. The Synarchy was not merely rebuilding. It was being culturally reformatted. The humans did not impose laws, but their mere presence acted as a gravitational force, bending the societal norms of the galaxy around them. The first major shock was the technology. The Synarchy had always prided itself on its advanced warp drives and plasma weaponry. The humans, however, viewed these technologies with the same quaint nostalgia one might view a steam engine. Human engineers, descending from the Ethelgard in their silent, hovering shuttles, began the process of stabilizing the galactic infrastructure. One such site was the shipyard of Antares Prime. It had been a ruin, a graveyard of twisted metal where the Synarchy's fourth fleet had made its last stand. Now, it was a hive of activity. General Kruk stood on the observation deck, watching a team of human engineers work on a damaged reactor core. "They don't use tools," Kruk rumbled, watching a human in a white exosuit wave a hand over a fractured hull plate. The metal groaned and began to knit itself back together, flowing like liquid mercury before hardening into a seamless surface. "Nanoconstruction," said a voice beside him. It was Commander Riker, a human officer assigned to oversee the dockyards. He was a man of imposing height, though still dwarfed by the Lithorian general. "Programmable matter. We convinced the atoms that they would prefer to be a hull plating rather than a pile of scrap. It's a matter of persuasion, really." "Persuading atoms," Kruk scoffed, though there was no malice in it anymore. "You treat physics like a negotiation." "Physics is a negotiation, General," Riker replied, watching the sparks fly. "You just have to know the language. Your people, the Lithorians. You understand stone. You sing to the crystal in your homeworld's caves to shape your cities, do you not?" Kruk looked at the human, surprised. "That is a sacred tradition. How do you know of the stone singers?" "We read your archives," Riker said with a shrug. "While we were waiting for the diplomats to finish talking, your method is sound. It's actually very similar to our tech, just applied differently. We use that principle to calibrate the structural integrity fields of this station. It should feel more homey to you now." Kruk paused. He had felt it. The station, usually a cold box of steel, felt grounded, solid. It felt like rock. "You adjusted the artificial gravity to mimic Lithorian resonance." "Small gestures build trust," Riker said. "And we need trust. The Caraxes hulks are being towed in tomorrow. We're going to need your heavy lifters to move them into the reclamation bays. I can't trust the automated tugs with that much unstable biomatter." "You want us to help dismantle them?" Kruk asked. "My soldiers want to burn them, spit on them." "And that is why we need you to help dismantle them," Riker said seriously. "To show your soldiers that the monster is dead, see the gears and the meat. Realize it was just a machine. Fear thrives in mystery, General. Knowledge kills fear." Kruk grunted, a sound of begrudging respect. "You are wise for a soft skin." "I've had good teachers," Riker said, his eyes drifting toward the Ethelgard hanging in the sky. Meanwhile, on the diplomatic front, High Counselor Thulvada was fighting a different kind of war. The human delegation, led by Ambassador Chen, had set up a temporary embassy in the Garden of Reflections, a serene park in the capital city. It was a stark contrast to the sterile meeting rooms of the Synarchy. The concept of post-scarcity is proving difficult for the trade guilds to accept, Volvada explained, pouring a cup of nutrient-rich algae tea for the ambassador. Chen nodded, accepting the cup. Economics based on supply and demand collapses when supply is infinite. We expected this. The fabricators we provided can produce food, medicine, and basic goods from raw energy. This threatens the merchants who sell food, medicine, and basic goods. Threatens, Volvada sighed. It obliterates them. The guild masters are threatening a strike. They say you are destroying the economy. We are destroying poverty, Chen corrected gently. But yes, the transition is painful. We cannot simply give everyone everything instantly. It causes social collapse. We saw it happen in our own history during the fusion age. Purpose is as important as sustenance. So what is the solution? We limit the fabricators, Chen said. For now, they will produce only the essentials to relieve the famine caused by the war. Luxury goods, art, specialized technology. That must still be crafted, traded, sold. You must maintain the value of labor, counselor. But the labor must shift from survival to creation. Your people shouldn't work because they will starve if they don't. They should work because they want to build a better starship or paint a better mural or discover a new star. That is a philosophy that will take generations to instill, Volvada said. We have time, Chen replied, and we have a project that might help unite the guilds. Oh, the Dyson swarm, Chen said casually. Volvada choked on his tea. A Dyson swarm, you intend to enclose our sun. Not enclose, harvest, just a partial ring. We need to recharge the Ethelgard's primary capacitors eventually, and we don't like to drain planetary grids. We want to contract the guilds to build the frame. We will provide the blueprints and the core materials. They provide the labor and the logistics. It will be the largest construction project in Synarchy history. It will keep them busy and profitable for 50 years. Volvada stared at the human. They manipulated economies as easily as they manipulated gravity. You create a problem, then you provide a solution that advances your own goals, all while making us thank you for it. Chen smiled, a dry, diplomatic expression. We call it synergistic development. It's better than war, isn't it? Yes, Volvada admitted, it is better than war. While the politicians debated and the soldiers worked, the scientists of the Synarchy were experiencing a revelation. Scholar Vex had been invited aboard the Ethelgard, a rare honor. He stood in the observatory, a room that was not a room, but a bubble of transparency on the ship's hull. He was accompanied by Science Officer Aris. Vex was vibrating with excitement, his chittering uncontrolled. The sensors, Vex said, pointing at the displays floating in the air. They are reading tachyon emissions from the galactic core, but that's impossible. Tachyons are theoretical. They are theoretical if you assume linear time, Aris said. We navigate by them. They are the currents of the future flowing back into the past. It helps us avoid obstacles. You can see the future? Vex asked, his compound eyes widening. Probabilities, Aris corrected. We see the ripples of stones that haven't been thrown yet. It's how we arrived just in time to save Authais. We saw the ripple of your extinction event about a decade ago. A decade? Vex asked. You knew for 10 years and you waited until the last second. We had to be sure, Aris said, his voice darkening slightly. Intervention is a dangerous game, Scholar. If we save a species that is destined to become a tyrant, we have doomed others. We watched the Synarchy. We watched how you treated your poor, how you treated your prisoners, how you treated each other. We had to weigh your survival against the potential harm you might cause. Vex felt a chill, and what was the verdict? You are flawed, Aris said honestly, but you are kind. You have a capacity for empathy that is rare, the Caraxes. They lost that long ago. They became pure efficiency. You still have chaos in you. Chaos is the only thing that can fight entropy. Aris gestured to the starfield. Look there, Sector 7G. Vex looked. It was a blank patch of space. I see nothing. Exactly, that is the Boötes void, or it was in our old charts. Now it is a fortress. A fortress for whom? For the silence, Aris said. The entity that chased the Caraxes. We are building a wall there, a wall of stars. We are moving star systems into a lattice formation to create a gravity well so deep that nothing can escape it. It is a prison for a god. Vex's mind reeled. The scale of it was incomprehensible. Moving stars, building prisons for gods. Why tell me this? Vex asked. I am just a scholar. Because we need you to understand the stakes, Ara said. The Synarchy thinks the war is over. It hasn't even begun. We are recruiting Scholar Vex. We need minds like yours. Minds that can look at the impossible and ask how instead of saying stop. Recruiting, Vex asked. You want me to join the Ethel Guard? We want to establish a science academy on Authis, Ara said. Directed by us, staffed by you, we will teach you the physics of the void. We will teach you how to bend space. But you must swear an oath. Knowledge is a weapon. You must swear never to use it for conquest. Vex looked at the stars, then at the human. I swear, he whispered. By the hive, I swear. The months turned into a year. The scars on Authis healed. The new towers rose, gleaming white and silver, a blend of Synarchy aesthetics and human engineering. The Caraxes hulks were gone, recycled into the skeleton of the orbital ring that now encircled the planet. Peace had settled, but it was a tense, active peace. The Synarchy was training. The fleet was being rebuilt, not as a clumsy armada of different designs, but as a unified force, integrating human shielding and propulsion theory. They were faster, stronger, and quieter. But the mystery of the humans remained. They were aloof, benevolent, yet distant. They walked among the aliens like adults in a playground, kind but clearly belonging to a different world. Then came the day of the great reveal. Admiral Halloway summoned the council to the Ethel Guard. It was the first time the entire council had been allowed on the bridge. The bridge was a vast, open space, devoid of the clutter of traditional command centers. There were no chairs, only standing consoles. The walls were panoramic screens showing the galaxy in breathtaking detail. Counselors, Halloway said, she looked tired. The humans aged, it seemed, even if they lived long. We have received a signal. From the entropy, Lulvada asked, fear spiking in his chest. No, Halloway said, from home, from Earth. A murmur went through the group. Earth, Kruk asked. I thought you said you left it. We did, Halloway said, but we left a beacon. In case of emergency light, it has been activated. What does that mean? Vex asked. It means, Halloway said, that the timeline has shifted, our presence here. The energy we used to stop the Caraxes. It resonated. It seems we might have attracted attention earlier than predicted. She waved a hand and the main screen changed. It showed a sector of space far from Authis. A rift was opening. It was not the jagged tier of the Caraxes, nor the clean slice of the humans. It was a rotting hole, a festering wound in reality. Greenish light spilled from it. The vanguard of the entropy, Halloway said. They found us. Here, Lulvada gasped. Now. No, not here, Halloway said. They are tracking the energy signature of the Ethel Guard. As long as we are here, you are in danger. Silence fell. The implication was clear. You are leaving, Kruk said. It wasn't a question. We must, Halloway said. We have to lure them away. We will jump to the intergalactic void. We will lead them into the deep dark where we can fight them without collateral damage. But we are not ready, Lulvada cried. You said we had time. You said 10,000 years. Plans change, Halloway said grimly. War is fluid. The enemy adapted faster than we anticipated. We have given you the tools. We have repaired your world. We have united your people. The rest is up to you. You cannot just leave us, Vex protested. We are still children compared to you. Then grow up, Halloway snapped. The steel in her voice returned, sharp and cold. Fast, we are leaving you a gift, the orbital ring. It is not just a shipyard. It is a planetary shield generator. It will protect Authis from anything less than a supernova. But it will not protect you from yourselves. If you fight each other, the shield falls. If you fracture, you die. She looked at each of them. This is the test. We saved you from the Caraxes. Now you must save yourselves from the silence. When do you leave? Kruk asked. Now, Halloway said. The drives are spooling. You must return to the surface. The departure was abrupt. There were no long speeches, no banquets. The council was transported back to the rotunda. They ran to the balcony, looking up. The Ethel Guard was. Glowing, the matte gray hull was turning translucent, revealing the pulsating heart of the star within. The sky hummed with power. The air ionized, making the hair on their bodies stand up. They are really going, Lulvada whispered, feeling a profound sense of abandonment. They are drawing the fire, Kruk said, his voice filled with a warrior's understanding. They are making themselves the target so we can live. It is the ultimate tactic. With a flash that turned the night into day, the Ethel Guard vanished. There was no streak of light, no warp tunnel. It simply ceased to be there. The thunderclap of air rushing into the vacuum where the ship had been shattered windows across the city. Then silence. The stars returned. The orbital ring hung in the sky, a silver halo around the planet, glowing softly with the energy the humans had left behind. The council stood in the dark. The fear was back, but it was different now. It wasn't the panic of the helpless. It was the anxiety of the responsible. "They left us the keys," Vex said, looking at a datapad he had been given. "Blueprints, schematics, the theory of the void." "And a warning," Kruk added. "The entropy is out there." Thulvada straightened his back. He looked at the map, which was no longer red. It was blue, green, and gold. It was a map of potential. "Call the assembly," Thulvada said. "We have a defense grid to calibrate, and general." "Yes, counselor." "Start drilling the fleets. Use the new engines. If the humans are fighting the dark out there, the least we can do is watch their backs." Kruk grinned, a grinding of stone teeth. "With pleasure." The galaxy was vast and the dark was deep. But for the first time in history, the races of the Synarchy did not look up with fear. They looked up with purpose. They had been terrorized, they had been saved, and now they were awake. Epilogue: The Deep Void. The Ethelgard dropped out of warp in the space between galaxies. There were no stars here, only the infinite black. Admiral Halloway stood on the bridge. The ship was silent, running on stealth protocols. "Status?" she asked. "Lure successful," Officer Aris reported. "The entropy vanguard has followed us. They are entering the trap zone." "Good," Halloway said. "Charge the singularity driver. Let's show them what humanity learned in the dark." She looked at the tactical display. A tiny, blinking dot represented the galaxy they had left behind. "Will they be okay?" Aris asked softly. "They have a chance," Halloway said. "That's more than most get." She turned to the darkness ahead, where the green rift was opening again, wider this time, revealing a horror of impossible geometry. "Helm," Halloway ordered, her voice calm, professional, and terrifyingly human. "Take us in. Engage at will." The Ethelgard surged forward, a lone spark of defiant light in the eternal night, ready to hold the line so that the garden behind them could grow. The war in the galaxy had ended, but the war for existence went on. And humanity, the ancient, weary guardian, was once again at work.